you guys are going to start working on a whole bunch of stuff with trigonometry and right triangles. So we're just going to start with looking at some of the fundamentals of right triangles. Some of this is going to sound familiar from your Pythagoras stuff that you guys have done, other math that you guys have done, but we're trying to review it anyway. And trigonometry is used. Trigonometry is used in so many types of mathematics and branches of math, pretty much every level of mathematics. It is used in construction, it's used in design, it's used for tons and tons and tons of different stuff. It's used for landing planes. It's used for how satellites work and communicate with different things. It's used in GPS systems. Trigonometry is used for so many different things. It's unbelievable. And this is where we can start. So we're going to start with some right triangle fundamentals. And it says right triangles have some shared properties as well as some unique ones compared to other triangles. Of course, right triangles are ones with a 90-degree angle. That's pretty self-explanatory. If it's got that, it is a right triangle. Right to math means 9 degrees. It says measure angle A and B and then find the sum of the three angles. All right, so if I measure angle A, which is over here, I can actually put my protractor on top of it. That angle down there is going to be, well, give or take, it's going to be a little bit off, whatever. It's around, we'll say 35 degrees. If I do the same thing for B, I can put that one in there as well. And for that one, that gives me 55 degrees. And C is easy, that's 9 degrees. And you put them together and you get 180. And that's because just like all other triangles, all the angles will always add up to 180 degrees every single time, no matter what kind of triangle it actually is. Okay, so that's one basic fundamental property of triangles. Okay, now, triangles are often labeled with upper and lower case letters with matching letters for opposite matching sides and angles. Okay. So sides A and B often switch, but C is always the longest one. So this is always the longest side. A and B, that could be A, except there's a little A over here. So sometimes when you match up angles and stuff like that, you will try and match it up. So the A would actually go on this side. If that little A wasn't there, I wouldn't actually know that. It could be either or. But since that little corner there is labeled as an A, they always want to go opposite. So if that's A, that's going to be B. And this corner right here would be a capital B, and this one would be a capital C. Okay, so it says sides A and B often switch, but C is always the longest side and is called, or this is what you guys often use in the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, you guys practiced Pythagoras last year quite a bit. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, that type of thing. So often A and B switch. Again, if that wasn't there, I would not have known that was A because you always want them to be directly across from each other. Okay? All right. Now, it says sometimes Greek letters are used to label angles, and theta and phi are very, very common. They are the two most common ones by far, especially theta is used a lot. So what is the value for theta? So if I take my protractor again, I can put it on my screen and actually measure my little angle theta down there. Okay, give or take, we're looking around 60 degrees. So I'll just say it's 60 degrees. So we're looking around 60 degrees. There's my 60 degrees right there. I know that's 90 right there. I know they have to add up to 180. So I know the other angle has to be 30 degrees, and that would be phi up there, and there's my 30 degrees up there. Okay. Now, then it says, aside from letters, sides of triangles are often defined based on which angle you are focusing on. The only exception is the hypotenuse, which is the, well, if you remember before, the hypotenuse is over here, that one over there. That is always the longest side no matter what. And it's always across from the right angle. So here's my right angle right there. The hypotenuse, of course, is over there, and it's often labeled with an H. The other two sides are called the opposite and adjacent, and the opposite is the farthest side or opposite side from the angle. So there's my theta right there. If I go on the opposite side, if I go opposite, there's the opposite right there, little O. And adjacent means next to. So there's obviously two sides that are next to the angle, but one of them is the hypotenuse. So it can't be the long one, it's this one here. Okay, it's the one adjacent that's actually touching the angle. Okay, so the hypotenuse is an H, and we've got opposite is O, and adjacent is A. Now, it may seem kind of dumb, like what happened to the ABCs we were using before? Well, The ABCs are usually used when you're going to use like Pythagoras, the Pythagorean theorem, that type of thing. But when you're going to use trigonometry, we use the H, the O, and the A, the hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent, so we know which angles we're talking about and which functions to actually use. Okay, it can also be kind of a nice clue of what you're supposed to do mathematically. If you've got A, B's, and C's, you're probably supposed to be using Pythagoras. If you don't, then you're probably supposed to be using trig. Okay, all right. So let's see what else we got here. So based on the labeled angle, identify and label the three sides of these triangles. Okay, so we're going to label the three sides of our triangles. Now, the hypotenuse is the easiest one by far. That's the easiest one for sure. The hypotenuse is always the longest one. So this is going to be a hypotenuse, that's going to be a hypotenuse, that's the hypotenuse, and that's the hypotenuse. That's really simple. Okay. If I want to then find my adjacent, the adjacent is one of the short sides that is touching the actual angle that I'm looking at. So here's the angle that's labeled. This is the side that's touching, so that's the adjacent. Here's the angle over here. That's the side that's touching, that's the adjacent. Here's the angle over here. That would be the adjacent. Here's the angle over here. There's the adjacent. And of course, for the opposite, it's the only side that's actually left, but it's also opposite the angle. That's going opposite the angle, so there's the opposite. Going opposite of the angle, there's my opposite. Opposite side, opposite, opposite side, opposite. So there you go. So they're all labeled. Okay, so these are some of the fundamentals that you guys will be using when you're starting your trigonometry, and we will be definitely using the H, the O, and the A a lot with our main trig functions, and this can really help to make sure you're using the right function, you're not dividing them in the wrong order, multiplying them when you should be dividing, a whole bunch of things, and just sort of labeling them. If you can't label them, it makes the rest kind of difficult. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple and makes things a lot easier and work a lot better.